When the sun in Leo has reached its zenith, it begins to make the descent in the heavens, emanating this white light in the flight of Virgo, the Virgin, also known as the Virgin Mary, and the woman and child in Revelation. She was also called Miriam, Myra, and even Marine Venus, the mistress of the sea, as seen as above so below, and even during the flow of the Christ oil in the brain. She is the being that carries all the germs, or the chromosomes of the all. She is the goddess of fertility, harvest, and abundance, as seen in the multi-seeded food of corn and wheat, seen unfolding during planting, the growth, and even down to the celebrations in harvest during the fall months. We see a connection in Greek mythology from the story of Demeter and Persephone, two sun spheres traversing the cosmic clock. Demeter, the goddess of harvest, always made sure the earth was bountiful. Persephone, as her daughter, was bright and cheerful, and their laughter made the world blossom. It is said that one day, while tending to the flowers, there came a split that opened the earth, and from it came a dark chariot with black horses, carrying the ghost rider of Hades, the god of the underworld. The ghost rider was able to convince Persephone to disappear into the ground. Demeter was heartbroken as she couldn't find her daughter. Looking for her everywhere, she asked the sun and the moon and the stars, but no one could find her. Demeter's sadness turned to anger, making life on the earth suffer, and the world turned cold and icy. The other gods noticed and tried to warn her. They asked Demeter to make the earth happy again, but she refused. She missed her daughter so much that Zeus decided to help. He sent Hermes to talk to Hades. After deliberations had reached an agreement, Hades decided to let Persephone visit her mother, but there was a catch. You see, Persephone had ate the seeds of the pomegranate in the underworld, so she had to spend half the year there. When Persephone returned to her mom's embrace, the earth blossomed again in the spring and the summer, and it was said as she returned to the underworld, she became sad. This short Greek story shows you on the cosmic clock how this greater solar light or being gives birth to a seed spare sun that will give light to the underworld where man resides till they can meet up again to become the ascending Christ in spring. And like Virgo the Virgin, seen by some of its 110 bright stars, such as Spica, which means ear of corn. Spica is said to be a collection of some of the brightest stars in Virgo. It emanates this light from the corn genome, which is 3,200 genes crammed into just 10 chromosomes, while humans have 20,000 genes dispersed and 23 chromosomes, giving this being the power to procreate at a minute level, the basis of life. In the handmaiden's outstretched arm is a branch. It is vindimatrix, also meaning a branch. This is a branch of the tree of life in the firmament. It gives support to the all. Another bright star is Cimmeria. It is likened to the 7 candlesticks, 7 sisters, or the 7 churches of Asia. Direct beneath her is the star Kang, which symbolizes the hand. In Greek mythology and native creation stories, the hand represents the tree of life that holds the all. Virgo braces on the tree of life as seen in the firmament. They are amidst the cloud halo with structures that are carved into chambers. She stands next to the sun as it crosses the celestial equinox. We are presented with one of the 2 crucifixion stories told about in the New Testament. One crucifixion is seen in the fall, as the sun descends in sorrow to the grave through the opening of the gates of hell from the 29th of September. The other is when the sun crosses above the celestial equator between March 19th to 21st. The sun now becomes the crucified lamb ascending to the heavens in Aries. Now in the fall months as the red sun that will give light unto the underworld. The other bright stars in Virgo are Tishmesh, meaning branch, and in Arabic Al-Zimesh, meaning the same thing. One deacon associated with Virgo is Koma. In Egyptian, it was called Shesnu, also meaning the desired son. Shakespeare referred to this play Titus Andronicus, Scene 3, the good boy in Virgo's lap. Who is the good boy in Virgo's lap? There is a similar story that speaks of a young woman whose Persian name translates into Arabic as Adrenadefe, a pure and immaculate virgin, sitting on a throne nourishing an infant, who has a Hebrew name by some nations called Isu, with a signification called Lisa, which in Greek is called Christ. In the Mazzaroth, the word for virgin is Bethula. Interestingly, in Arabic, the same word means branch. Branch is also a biblical term for Messiah, as seen in Zechariah 3:8. In Latin, the language of the Romans, the word Virgo means virgin, and Virga means branch. And the term for this constellation in Coptic is Aspolia, which means the place of the desired branch. The birth of the child in Virgo is represented by the holoprosphensilia of the embryology or fetal imaging of the mystical cavum septum plucidium. This slim translucent space is described as a split-like membrane that separates the anterior of the right and left ventricles of the brain. It is also a consistent neuropathogenical feature that opens, and it represents a deviation of the embryological fluid that flows in the space between the leaflets of the septum lucidium. This separates the frontal horn and the body of the ventricles in the midline of the brain. The cavum septum lucidium will fuse by 6 months in the fetus, connecting to the fact that Virgo is also the sixth sign. This is also known as the Cave of Brahma, an awakening inside the crystal palace. This is that space where life descends in the fetus, and the space where the chrism oil or Christ oil descends through the sacred cavum septum lucidium. This action creates an icon with wings representing the protector Virgo, the Virgin. So when the chrism oil reaches its zenith, it flows back down through the second ventricle, then the third, pulling with it water, as in the flood story, or the chrism oil released from the chloride plexus as it flows down through the Virgin to her well, or what is known as the cerebral aqueduct. This is in the brain and the body, and we can see this formation as a symbolic representation of Virgo, while the Christ oil flows down and flows up at the same time, expanding laterally through the fourth ventricles, or the lumeshka, and goes outside the subarachonic space. The final explosion of the cerebral spinal fluid, or chrism oil, is seen between the two pons that look like thighs, holding the posterior Magdalena, which truly tells you of the posture of Magdalene, or Mary Magdalene, as Virgo the Virgin. It flows out into the central nervous system and out into the subarachnoid space. This we see in the cosmos as the light leaves Leo to light the brain in Virgo, and it activates the seed between the pons. This is the excess flow from the space, that is the seed or the child, coming down the thighs and down into the underworld. This seed produce gives light to the fall months, where it will be judged with the scales as it makes its journey around the cosmic clock. This represents the sun in man as a cycle of rebirth, death, and resurrection. The shift to the magnetic pulse of the sun has now seen a loss in temperature under the firmament. This is also seen in the brain as the cerebral spinal fluid has now entered the bloodstream or the Red Sea in the subarachnoid space, creating a loss in temperature in the brain. Found sitting beneath Virgo is Libra, the scales. Libra's logo is a sign of the sun descending below the celestial equator. The Babylonians associated Libra with the claws, belonging to the constellation Scorpio, but was also a part of Virgo, although being in the middle. Scorpio still was largely the fulfillment of Libra. Libra, symbolized by the golden scales of the goddess Asteria, whom was also known as Virgo, was now attributed to fairness, law, justice, and civility, and depicted by the Romans as balance, deriving from the word equilibrium. This was marked by peace, prosperity, and justice, revolving around the figure of Asteria, the celestial virgin and daughter of Zeus and Thetis. Asteria is often depicted holding the scales of justice, weighing the deeds of humanity. During the Golden Age, she lived amongst humanity, bringing with her the principles of fairness and harmony. This era was marked by peace, prosperity, and justice in harmony. Asteria's unwavering commitment to being just gave her the respect of the Greeks, as there were a few tales of her punishing those who transgressed against her high standards. One myth was said that she left the earth and became the constellation Virgo after humanity became too corrupt to tolerate. Asteria became an important figure in Greek mythology, and her influence is still seen today in our justice system, which is an image and symbol of a woman holding a balanced scales. Asteria was said to return to Earth one day and bring with her what she once represented as a time of peace, equality, and justice that will prevail. The brightest stars in Libra lead to Zub-Nesh-Kameli, the northern one of the two. Comes from an Arabic phrase meaning the northern claw, that of the Alpha star, meaning the southern claw, with Zeb-Nesh-Kameli Janubi are both considered a gateway in the sky, symbolizing divine justice. Libra's name originates from the word scales in Latin. We also see Gamma Librae is called Zub-Nebelakra, which means the scorpion claw. Sigmund Libra's proper name is Brachium, known previously as Gamma Scorpii, although discovered well inside the boundaries of Libra. There is also brachium of the brain. This is referred to as the arm or the upper arm. So the south scale as the star Zub-Nel-Janubi is the insufficient price when bad deeds outweighs the good. Zub-Nel-Janubi measures the price of the deficient. It delivers loss, disappointment, and suffering until the debt is paid off. The north scale as a star Zub-Nesh-Kameli is the full price. Sacrifice and love have atoned for previous misdeeds. The karmic surplus is the price which covers the good fortune. Happiness and success delivered by Zub-Nesh-Kameli is in great favor. So, sitting beneath the Virgo in the brain as the cavum septum pellucidum is the basilar anterior, fused to the semicircle canals. These structures together carry the pattern of the scales. The semicircle canals assist in balance of the head during its rotational equilibrium. One of the three semicircle canals on each side are always in a resting position, while the other two, during the head rotation, the liquid inside the semicircle canals sloshes around and moves the tiny hairs inside the line of each canal. These hairs translate the movement of the liquid into nerve messages that are sent to your brain. Your brain then tells your body how to stay balanced.
You are lying down. And as we do that, they can see how the crystals are moving through the canal when you have BPPV and how they settle down at the bottom of the canal, and they understand why they have the symptoms for as long as they do. So
we see this balanced light through the crown halo or corona as one of the three deacons of Libra. This light or chrism oil passes through the four corners of the brain as seen in the fall to the underworld or to the lower parts of the body being the spinal cord. This is the victim slain in lupus, falling through the cold days and nights that eventually reached the gates of Scorpio. The Scorpio of ancient had 6 eyes and was a seer, as one of the oldest constellations on record of the 48 originals that were identified by Greek astronomer Ptolemy. Scorpio in Hebrew is Avkar, or father of coldness, associating this root force of coldness to do with the fall months and the change in the temperatures. At this point, the dural sinus then drains back into the circulation from the jugular veins. This cerebral spinal fluid leaks into the bloodstream in the brain, creating that coldness to the lower part of the body, now recognized in Scorpio. In the presence of Pluto, the god of the underworld, and Mars, both stand at the gates of death and resurrection. Mars remains balanced in judgment by his rival Antares, beating bright as the heart of Scorpio, as the elements in the chrism oil twist down the spine like the two serpents. The serpent became one of the special symbols of this oldest of mothers. The two great truths of the Egyptians were said to be written with the serpent. They were also given in the two characters of the gestation of the signs Pisces and Virgo of the zodiac sign Virgo. She was the tree of life as well as the serpent of life. The Scorpio was an ancient representation of the serpent. On the zodiac of Dendera, we see the Virgin holding the scales before the Scorpio, who is followed by the hieroglyphs of a lizard, a two-headed serpent, and a bird-like falcon. This fall of the chrism oil reveals the reptilian brain that is now in balance and is judged and awaits resurrection to the heavens. This being one of the reasons why Scorpio took up the Libra constellation. We also see another pattern that could represent the hard shell of the Scorpio, represented here in the skeletal form of the cervical vertebrae that flows down to the coccyx, which resembles the stinger of the scorpion. Remember, Scorpio as the 8th sign in the zodiac is activated between the assigned time of October the 23rd to November the 21st. The name Scorpio is from the constellation Scorpii, Latin for scorpion. Scorpio is a water sign and is the creature with the ability to sting. The coccyx, as Scorpio's stinger, is a combination of fine veins. When filled with the fluid, it becomes tightly released back at the spine, creating a slight sensation. This story partly becomes the arrow of light focused upward by Sagittarius. But we can also learn this in the Greek story of Orion and the Scorpio. Orion, the mighty accomplished hunter, became good friends with Artemis. As time passed, they became closer, and Apollo saw this as a decision that could ruin her life. So Apollo decided to send a huge Scorpio to battle Orion. This confrontation created such an intense and brutal upheaval that it took them both. Orion lay dead from the stinger of the Scorpio. When Artemis heard Orion was dead, she ran to where the giant had fallen. As devastated as she was, she made sure he was not forgotten by placing him amongst the stars with the Orion constellation, and her brother Apollo also honored the great scorpion for his sacrifice. We can also consider beneath this skeletal form, there is a pattern of Scorpio star system found in the anatomy of the basilar artery. Each section reveals what looks like blockages in the artery. This can be seen as a star point location in Scorpio's star constellation. So what we can interpret from this story is that, as we know, Orion is in the heavens, or the brain, and Scorpio is placed in the underworld, or the stinger in the lower part of the body. If we position these stars or sphere portals at important key junctions of the body, we can see Scorpio shooting up the deadly blow to Orion. The first three portals we meet before the chrism oil is dispersed throughout the brain is the cervical vertebrae. This area is called Atlas. These three portals are your main stars in Orion's belt. They are known to be perfectly spaced stars of almost even brightness straddling from the celestial equinox, where they can be seen from almost any location in the world. This asterism, consisting of Menteke, Al-Nilam, and Al-Nitak, creates the Arabic Al-Nijad, which means the belt, Al-Nakas, the line, and Al-Nakak, the golden grains or nuts, or the accurate scale beam. And in Chinese mythology, they are also known as the Wane beam. Remember, Atlas hints to the Greek story of a man carrying the world on his shoulders. This is the Wane beam in the cervical vertebrae. It braces the weight of the all within the head. Orion, being the poor man's Atlas, is now dead because the chrism oil, when directed through these three portals, expands to the different structures of the brain, which opens the pathway to the nursery of stars within the cosmos.